Sarah. I'm so happy to see you, my love. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so happy to see you. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this chat and just, being in your bubbly, wonderful presence always uplifts me, even if it's virtually.
I could say the same. And we're talking about some difficult issues here and how to navigate the world of musical theater auditioning when we have setbacks, when we deal with difficult people in the industry. And if there's anybody to talk about this with, it is someone who wears her namesake well, Sarah Joy Kane, because that really is
Oh,
you. You have such a lovely, light-filled presence, not just in person, but on social media as well. I've already bragged about you just a little bit. But for our listeners who are hearing you or seeing you for the first time also on our YouTube channel, give us a little bit of your story. What sparked that love for musical theater?
sure. Well, thank you so much for gushing. I feel so great. Let's see. I started singing, I would say, let's go all the way back to the beginning. My dad is a preacher, so I kind of grew up in the church and started singing super young. I remember a specific story that my parents tell. Um, my dad had us sing in front of the congregation, my sister and we're 2 years apart. So I think I was about 5 at the time, and my sister was 3. They had us sing like "Cheer up, ye saints of God, there's nothing to worry about." And I remember at the end, I like kept going. My sister ran off crying, and I wanted an encore. I think at that moment, my parents thought, "Oh, this is something she really enjoys." Like
No kidding.
milking it for all it's worth. So that's kind of my start. And then my mom is a music teacher, so music was really big in our household. My dad likes to think he can sing, but he's a better preacher than a singer. Um, but we were always surrounded by music, and I had great parents that really encouraged my sharing of gifts and being able to really, really encourage and just kind of help that flourish as I grew up. So that was really, really a blessing to have. So I went on to high school and did musicals and cheerleading and, all of those front things that I really enjoyed. And my story is a little different than most in musical theater. I went to 1 year of Bible college and instead of getting a BFA, and then I booked a tour after that 1 year, kind of left the schooling behind. And since then I've been working, professionally and still getting a lot of training in the city, which has been nice. That was my school, but I always say like my school and training was very hands-on. So yeah, in a long nutshell, that's kind of where I started. And
I think that's actually encouraging to hear that you launched differently. There's so many ways to launch, right? Then, like you said, your typical 4 year academic BFA degree, hit the city, stand in line for auditions. Again, so many ways. Mine was through community theater and then booking regional. And
yeah,
I never did the New York City thing, but I still had very enriching experiences on stage, both in amateur arenas as well as professional, and all of it has contributed in beautiful ways and also challenging ways too. I'm sure that you can concur, and we're about to here in just a moment. So I put out a request on Instagram stories about, hey, got questions for the podcast, send them my way. And one of the first ones that came in was, how do you deal with difficult directors? Okay. Now, give us the span, all right, because there is no ageism here. We are celebrating every single season of our life.
yeah, love it.
How many years total is your span of performing?
So professionally, is it professional that you're kind of looking for, or just
Yes.
from
Yeah, you can break it down to
other?
professional, volunteer or
Okay.
total.
Okay, great. So I would say, I mean, seventh grade, I did the musicals, all the way through high school. Yes, Don't Rock the Boat was a written musical for our school, which is very fun. Um, so seventh grade through high school, and then went to that year of Bible college. booked that tour, which was a 9-month tour. I got to see most of the country, which was amazing. And then from that point, so we'll say I was about 19, I'm almost 40. So we're looking at about 20 years. And I would say about a decade of that has been in New York City.
Wow.
So a lot of people don't realize, but auditioning for New York City is not just for the city itself. It's actually more for regional theaters or tours that go out. So a lot of that time was in and out of the city on contracts. So 20 years, I would say, being paid.
Beautiful. So we share about the same longevity in terms of of a professional, theatrical or performance career, right? So let's call it 40 plus years together, of just encouragement. So if you are listening, listen, precious listener who submitted this question, obviously we chose, or we feel like we've been called to a path of sharing our gifts and abilities and skill set in an arena that thankfully we see evolving. I know I have seen evolving. Would you say the same thing, that it's evolving there are changes happening for the better in terms of really taking care of the actor?
Absolutely. I'm so glad that you mentioned that because that is one of the biggest, most uplifting things I've seen, and I'm sure you have too in the past 20 or so years,
Mhm.
is the mental health of an actor, being more in the forefront, taking care of ourselves, and also not just putting us in such a little box. It used to be very standard. You look this way, you book this, you sound this way. And now there's so much more variety. And I think it's adding so much flavor and passion and to shows and performances. So yes, I
Exactly,
love that it's
exactly.
changing.
So I wanted to open up with that because we are seeing glimmers of change for the better. So, but when something is changing for the better, you have to address what's not going very well. And I think this is what I'm hearing. You're also a voice teacher as well, so we are both in the training as well as actually doing the thing together. And we're sharing our experience, not so uplifting experiences that we've had. In fact, very hard challenges that challenged our mental health, that challenged our self-esteem. I remember going through one of the most confusing periods of my own vocal training, working in regional theater and working with multiple musical directors who told me if I sang this way, it was belt. I would do the same exact thing for another music director, and they'd be like, "No, stop mixing." And I'm like, but. So confusing, right? And so
Yeah.
I think in order to come out of the funk, in order for betterment, we really need to address what should not be happening, right? And so I kind of want to rewind a little bit because this podcast, I was actually going to answer that question solo until Sarah and I were bebopping on the socials together. She shared this poignant Facebook post from Drew Boudreau, who is the founder of College Audition Pros. And listen, it was a come to Jesus letter addressed to
Yeah.
theater teachers, but this is what is happening. We need to highlight what's not going well in order to get to the better part of some of the things, some of the hopeful things that you and I are experiencing here lately. I'm going to take a minute to actually read this. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll throw it up on the screen. But he said, "Dear bad theater teacher," just out of the gate, "please quit or go pursue your dream. You are jaded and angry and play favorites in your fiefdom, but these are teenagers or young adults or people of any age, I will insert, and you are the authority they look to. When you say you'll never be a lead or you're not really that kind of actor, their belief in their abilities sinks through the floor. Not only are you cruel, but you're terribly misinformed. Perhaps your heyday was 30 years ago, but things have changed since then. Hallelujah. And giving decades
Yeah.
antiquated advice is harmful. Fat kids can be romantic leads. Short kids can be leading men. And gay kids can be title characters. You're not
Yeah.
them for the real world. You're dashing their dreams based on lazy, outdated ways that things used to be done. Stick your toe back in the industry to see what it's like now. Get creative again and live your own dream. You halfway tried and gave up, but now you're taking it out on your students. Your frustration with yourself isn't the issue, it's the collateral damage you're inflicting on kids as a result. And your tough love excuse is so thin, it's tissue paper. Challenging students to improve, instilling discipline for greatness, and self actualization is the act of a caring mentor. But you're cutting down kids in front of their peers. There's no benefit to that. You're just a failed bully. So get out of the way and let them be taught by someone who's up to date on the business and wants to see them flourish. Sincerely, a college audition coach who never thought he'd have to say this so often. Holy moly, there's so much to dissect in that.
That
I
is
mean,
a
like
competition.
we're having a little bit of church here. So I'd love to get just your initial reactions on that.
Sure. Well, I have to say, I actually know Drew personally. We met at an audition in the city. So he is a wonderful, open, very accepting, very well educated, or, has so much experience in the industry. And I love how poignant and how articulate and how bam that letter is. And I'm so happy that we both saw that. Yes, hallelujah. I think for so many years, hashtag hallelujah, for so many years, we, like I kind of touched on, have been put in such small boxes. You're this type. But as actors, if we are actors, we're so multifaceted in the stories we can tell and the things that we can share. It doesn't, like they said, you don't have to be this tall man to be able to share this story. So the fact that he really, hit on that, and the industry is starting to make waves to change. There have been some shows with, different character types, which I love. Yes, I have had some teachers that are very old school, I'll say, and I left those classes feeling so torn down, so distraught, no hope in my craft. They kind of take that love and that excitement away when they just put you in one certain thing, or in the past, how things were, they have not experienced the change yet. And I think it's unfortunate for them. Really, I do. I think that there's so much more to be experienced when we take our blinders off.
Exactly, exactly. So then here are, not just kids, adults, pre-professional adults who are actually going back to that first love and really nurturing a dream that they thought was dormant. And, they're starting to get cast in their local community theater, or they're starting to book professional regional, or they're getting their first lead since high school, and all of a
Yeah.
sudden they're met with a person like this who may not be a teacher. Actually may be the director, right? Because this came from somebody who's already
Mhm.
with a difficult director. And, we know how, again, easy it is to snuff out the passion or have that just be berated, because all of a sudden
Yeah.
we may have been in a very healthy, thriving, professional, organized environment. All of a sudden we're thrown into, somebody who's not, and also an array of things. I mean, they may be saying, good grief, all sorts of inappropriate things to the cast or whatever.
Yeah.
Gosh,
Yeah.
what is, when I say that, you may already have someone in mind, right? So what would be one of the first things, let's say they're having this cup of, cafecito with us and we're taking them out and trying to just be a friend. Like, what would be one of the first things you would say to encourage this actor?
So I think as an actor, especially what I've learned over the years, is you really have to know who you are as a person. And this is so hard. It's a work in progress. At 40, I'm still growing and still discovering. But I think if you have a foundation of knowing who you are and your gifts and what you bring to the table, it's not as easily shaken that way. People have, like you mentioned earlier, so many different opinions, right? About what's right, what's wrong, how this, and art is very subjective too. I've had directors love certain things and hate certain things I've done. So I think as long as you're keeping the integrity of the story and you're, sharing, there's a reason that you got that role, there's a reason that you were picked to share that story. So as long as you're being true to yourself, um, I think that opinion is so important. How we feel about it and sharing our art. Sometimes art is so judged, and I kind of wish it wasn't as much. I think there'd be so much more freedom if we could do things and not be absolutely perfect at it, and just be able to have those little like cracks or those little, I think that's beautiful when there's humanity that kind of comes through instead of a very polished veneer. It's not as powerful or relatable as an audience member.
Yeah, no,
Anyway, that was a little bit of a tangent, but
no, but this is we love tangents. Because like you said, that's it's the realness, it's honesty, it's truth. I remember encouraging one of my performers in a very similar situation also, hold on to the people in the cast who you do have camaraderie with, who you are your
yeah,
scene partners that you have great chemistry with when you're both getting this vibe from a director that where the direction actually might be confusing, and although you've tried to ask for clarity, you're still unclear. I don't think there's anything wrong with leaning into your fellow actors, right? And working.
I love that.
Yeah, I've worked with a number of directors who, listen, they're wonderful people. But I don't know if you've ever, had the director hat on. I think we both have for different occasions and things that we've been a part of. Sometimes you're so zeroed in to making sure the
Yeah.
show gets put up. For the actor that is doing a hell of a job, they are on it,
Yeah.
sometimes we forget to just say, hey, thank you for being on top of it, right? We're so concerned
Wow.
with the correction. So I understand that's a real thing. And so when I've been in situations where I've been the actor where I'm not getting much feedback, or I'm not sure, or I've asked and I'm still not clear, I have been able, thankfully, to lean heavily on my scene partners to make it happen, right? And just
Wow.
the thing. Now, if you're in a situation where you don't have that camaraderie, where there's a little bit of drama with the drama, especially
Oh,
with a lot of my younger teen actors, I'm having just to counsel a lot of that goes on. What's one of the first things, in addition to knowing who you are, how to be yourself and not get caught up in the drama behind the drama?
gosh, isn't that crazy? That is such a thing to have drama behind the scenes or drama off the stage, and it needs to just be on the stage. But
Yeah.
it happens. We're humans. There's pride involved. There's all these different personalities. um I think at the end of the day, like if you're preparing and doing your part, it's finding joy in making sure that it doesn't become homework or something that stresses you out. Art should be life-giving and something we really enjoy. So if you can find, the joy within that stress and try and, if it's so easy to get wrapped up in like the drama and chatting. And I think if there's a way to diffuse things, get out of there, walk out of situations of the drama, it is it is so much better to just focus on the art itself and not get wrapped up in all of that. And I think it's hard because you want to have that camaraderie, right? And
Course.
you want to be part of the group and part of, but at the end of the day, that drama is life sucking. It takes away from the art, it takes away from the passion. So easier said than done sometimes, but just avoiding, walking away, focusing or doing something uplifting where you mentioned something great about the show or something great about characters, to kind of change that narrative and that conversation. Yeah,
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
that would,
Absolutely. Because I remember being in seasons myself where that in and of itself was starting to, fan out the flame or fan out the
Yes,
enthusiasm for
yes.
taking purposeful breaks for my own mental health because there
Yeah.
was so much drama. But yeah, so let's take a second to talk to that beautiful, passionate performer who's starting to find the courage again to get back out there and audition, whether it's at an amateur level, or a professional show. Um, what would your advice be for them as they head into the audition room?
Ooh, this is such a good question and so timely. I just actually was an audition judge last night for about 40 teenagers that want to do a professional program
Oh,
here where I am at the theater. And so I would say the biggest thing, and this is overused, but truly your power is yourself, being yourself. Do not come in trying to be a Kristen Chenoweth, which I tried for a long time, or a Patti LuPone. You come in as yourself. You're quirky or you're silly or you're very polished, whatever it is that makes you you. Step into that room as yourself. That's what we want to see. And you know what? If there's a crack in your performance, you know what I mean? If there's a pitchy issue, you keep moving right through and telling the story. I think sometimes as actors, and I know I do this, I'm sure you probably do, correct me if I'm wrong, but we get so in our heads about being perfect about things that if we have one misstep, it kind of snowballs and we get out of the moment.
yeah.
So I think just being who you are, showing that human side, not striving for that perfection. There is beauty, like we said, in that, in the humanity of things.
Beautiful advice. Yes, yes, yes. So I would tack onto that too. So like getting to know yourself and celebrating yourself also means who are you when you are not on stage? What are the things
Mm.
that light you up when you are not doing the craft and invest in those too, whether it's like going up for a walk with your dog, or you
Yeah.
just with Bridgerton. I don't know, whatever fills your cup, those
Yes.
light you up too, right? And add to the interpretation or the story that your version of the story that you're telling in those 16 bars. So, ooh, Sarah, that was juicy. Okay.
Wow. Oh, right back at you. I love that you brought that up because sometimes we do get so focused on the performer. I've had to be like, I am a human being first and a storyteller, but first, I am a human. I'm not like Sarah, the masked performer, it's me. And then I love to perform. So I
Yeah,
love that you said
exactly. Exactly.
that.
Exactly. Okay, so speaking of things we love, before I let you go, I want a little bit of sort of kind of rapid fire, maybe kind of sort of, but tell me
Ooh,
what is
okay.
one of your favorite role to date? That's gonna be hard.
Millie in Thoroughly Modern Millie. My absolute, to this day, it's been about 15 years. And to this day, through all of their shows, there was something feisty about her and something so empowering. I love Millie.
Oh my gosh, I can totally see you as Millie too. I love it. I love it. Favorite show you've seen in the last 5 years?
Ooh, so it's not the musical The Last 5 Years, although that's a good one. My favorite one I've seen probably Come From Away. And I'm surprised to hear myself say that because do you love it too?
It's,
There is,
I was surprised by how much I loved it.
yes, you were too. I thought, well, it's not this big, like, da-da-do Broadway, but there was so much heart, like we're talking about in storytelling and humanity. I was like sobbing.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, and last but not least, a new wish list role on the to-do list.
Okay, so this one's a little bored because I wanted it for years, but Glinda in Wicked, and I think I can still play it because we are talking about how you can play into your older years. Um, but I just booked one of my kind of top dream roles. It is, are you ready?
Drum roll, drum roll, drum roll.
For this summer, I'll be playing Paulette in Legally Blonde, which I'm so excited about.
Oh my gosh, Sarah! I can already see you. I can already see you in, my gosh, I cannot wait. Okay, I've got all your socials and information listed in the show notes. So I'm sure you'll share more about your journey, but oh my goodness, congratulations.
You. Well, thank you so much. And this was such a fun time with you. I love that you educate and empower your listeners. And really, you're such an uplifting person. I'm so happy we connected.
Thank you, Sarah. I really appreciate that. I know I just said that I'd put your stuff in the show notes, which I will, but let's just go ahead and say it out loud. If our listeners want to connect with you, where can they find you?
Sure. So I am Sarah with an H, Joy, my middle name, Joy, and then Kane, Kane. So Sarah Joy Kane. And that's on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, where the ticks talk, all of those. Sarah Joy Kane.
Fantastic. Well, we cannot wait to follow your journey. And Sarah, thank you again for sharing your heart, your wisdom, and break a leg, mama.
Thank you so much.